Welcome to the Dr. Berkson's Best Health Radio Show. We have a lot that we're going to cover. We're going to talk about the new information out on fish oil because fish oil's had yay or nay, green light, red light, and now we're going to talk about what the Mayo Clinic has to say. We're going to talk about how coffee, all the 1,000 polyphenolic compounds in coffee are healthy for your gut. We're going to mention that chocolate tends to be a high carrier of toxic metals like aluminum and cadmium, so stay tuned for my blog on that. We're going to chat about less is more, about some doctors say, well, if people don't want to wear masks, should we treat them? Let's see what doctors around the world are doing to people who tend not to wear masks, and the use of testosterone to lose weight. Yep, we got a lot to talk about on this show. First of all, I wanted to thank Jennifer Lee. She sent me a beautiful letter. She said, thank you for being the smart with heart person that you are and for sharing it with the world. I've learned so much from you and things that really help me, my family, and my ability to help others. I dread that we have to wear these masks, but I'm glad that in some small way to reciprocate your generosity. So she sent me some masks, and if you're out there listening, Jennifer, I wanted to thank you because that really touched my heart. We haven't been monetizing these shows for a bunch of years and our blogs for 10 years almost. I did my Facebook postings just because I love to do it and I really love to serve. But when I hear back from those that have been served and they also in return figure out a cool, nifty way to serve in response, it just makes me feel so loved and appreciated and part of a community. There's so much negativity in the world today. I've been pretty disheartened about it. I think I'll maybe have a show sometime and let you know how I've really been feeling. I've been down about it. So when I get these kind of notes, it makes me more up about it. And I had another up moment I wanted to share with you before we dive into fish oil. So when I just came back from Cape Cod, I love to canoe, I love to be on the water, and Mike and his wife Mary generously had me stay on Cape Cod, and Mike and I kayaked for about 9 days, often multiple hours a day, where we would kayak across the Atlantic Ocean. We would hit the shores of an island. We would portage, which is to drag the kayak through the island, get on the other side of the island where there'd be more interesting bodies of water, all kinds of different looks to them and grasses, and we would kayak over to another body of water, and then we would repeat it. One of the other delicious things of that blessed vacation, because how often do you get to have such a cool vacation and be in shape and health to do it, is that every morning, Mike, who's Italian and lives in Italy, not this year he can't, but goes and lives with his family in Italy every year, he loves espresso. I've never had espresso. So every morning he would serve me if I wanted it in bed, if I wanted it downstairs with him and his wife. They were absolutely warm and generous, and every morning I got this delicious espresso. He is a scientist, a colloidal and battery scientist, so he has gram measure scales where he measures everything out to make the perfect espresso. He said his family in Italy doesn't go to that trouble, and they use Nespresso machines, and they're fabulous espresso. So I bought the Brel Nespresso machine, brought it home, and when I did go to get it, it was pretty involved because the Bed Bath & Beyond, first I went to William & Sonoma and it was closed down. That was a shock. Then I went to my local Bed Bath & Beyond, and they showed me all that was available, and the one I wanted wasn't at that store. So then I had to drive on the other side of town to another store, and ultimately the young woman I dealt with showed me how I could be part of the club and get 20% off every time. And she was just so cool helping me pick out this espresso machine that we had this vignette. You know how much I love these vignettes where you have a heart-to-heart, like that woman who just sent the masks, like you have a heart-to-heart with someone you don't even know. But it makes you feel part of the human race. So we had so much fun. And then I said, you know what? we got to call over your manager. I got to tell him how great you are. So we called over the manager, and then we all ended up having a lot of fun. We're in our masks. We're having a lot of fun. And I said, this has been so much fun. Let's do a high five. So we did a mutual with everybody, high five. And then I said, excuse me, pass the hand sanitizer. How often do you give a high five and then need to hand sanitize your hands? I just thought that was a riot. High five and then sanitize. High five and then sanitize. So fish oil. I don't know, but there's been, in the functional medicine community, we recommend and recognize the benefits of the omega-3 fatty acids, dexahexanoic acid and epensinoic acid, so DHA and EPA, for many, many years. But there's been these studies off and on that say they don't help anything, they don't do anything. And often, though, there are some studies, often more hidden, that they do things. For example, studies have shown that if you take high-dose quality fish oil right after you have a heart attack, it helps your heart remodel back to a healthier heart in a very short period of time. And that's been pretty well proven. But I don't know if your cardiologist recommended fish oil. Well, this study came out of the Mayo Clinic. It was published in the Mayo Clinic Proceedings. And it was a meta-analysis which looks at multiple studies. It was 40 studies. So they have to take studies that all fulfill certain criteria, and 40 studies did. So that's a robust meta-analysis. And this study statistically showed that omega-3 fatty acids, the EPA and the DHA, greatly reduced heart attack and complications secondary to heart attack, and fatality from heart attack, and a diverse presentation of cardiovascular disease. So if you've been questioning because you've seen some bad as well as the good fish oil supplementation articles, this was about fish oil supplementation, not just eating fish meals. You know, there's that also criticism. You don't need to take supplements, and they're going to be dirty if you buy them in most places if you don't get pharmaceutical grade, which is not necessarily true. But basically, they say you only need fish meals. This study out of the Mayo Clinic Proceedings saw that omega-3 fatty acid supplementation was linked with protection for coronary vascular disease. And heart disease is the number one killer in men and women. And if you're going to live longer, you want to make sure your heart is watching your physiologic back. And the way to do that is to take fish oil. If you take it, you want to take doctor's grade, meaning you can buy nutraceuticals from doctor's lines. You don't really need to do doctor's grades pharmaceutical script fish oil. There's fish oils from Biotics, Designed for Health, Barry Sears. There's fish oil, Nordic Naturals, that are very healthy brands that do not have contaminants in them. And the main thing, though, is dosage. You want to get the right product, and then you want the right dose of the right product, and then you want to take it the optimal way. So you want to take a brand made by a doctor's nutraceutical line or a pharmaceutical one. I think the doctor's lines are often better than the pharmaceutical. And then you want to take a large enough dose depending on your weight, depending on your health condition. There's so many different things. If a woman is just taking hormone replacement, there have been many studies, and I write about this in Safe Hormone Smart Women, where fish oils help your body utilize estrogen better. So boron and fish oil, those are two estrogen enhancers. I just threw boron in there, but it's something we use often to enhance the bioavailability of estrogen, as well as fish oil. But fish oil makes the body use estrogen better, which might be one of the reasons it's heart protective, because there's so many receptor sites on the cardiomyocytes, the basic cell of the heart. So it might be that fish oil has multiple portals by which it's heart protective. One of them, that it improves the action of estrogenic signaling on both men and women, because we both have estrogen, and men need estrogen to protect their hearts also. The other way is how best to take a fish oil supplement. I find the one that I can take the most, because I want to take a fair amount and I don't want to burp it up. So I've been using the CERT EFA by biotics because Dr. Houston designed that, and I lecture with him and I hang out with him. And when I have questions, I reach out to him and he responds and he's on it, and he's got his second textbook out. He's got a number of books out for the public. So he walks his talk and knows his stuff. So he designed those products. So I like that there's EPA, DHA, and there's also evening primrose oil derivative in there. So I like getting all of it, and I also know that it's quality, and I also know who formulated it. So that makes me feel good, good, good. So if you're going to take a fish oil, and that one doesn't make me burp. Many fish oils do, and you sometimes have to play around with the right product that doesn't make you burp. Also, usually the doctor's lines and the more pure lines don't have that eructation. That's the name for burping after consuming them. And you want to take fish oil with a fatty meal. So as you consume some fat in your food, you release bile, and bile emulsifies your fat so you can absorb your fat. So people that have gallbladder disease or a history of that, or have had their gallbladder removed, might need to get the best bang for their fish oil supplement buck to take a little ox bile replacement along with the fish oil, but that should really be done under the auspices of a medical nutritionist or a functional practitioner. Why? Well, because more bile acid than you need can be procarcinogenic and irritating to the gut, meaning it can cause nasty changes and irritation. So you want it when you need it, and you don't want it when you don't have it. That's part of the problem of getting your gallbladder removed. I went to a IFM conference once, and they had this functional gastroenterologist from the Cleveland Clinic, and he put up imaging of patients that had had their gallbladder removed and showed that, and some of them were fluoroscopies, so you can literally see the movement of what was going on. They were videos inside the gut. And when you get your gallbladder is the piggy bank for your bile. Your liver makes it, the gallbladder stores it. And when you have a fatty meal, the gallbladder squirts it out into the lumen of the gut, the inside of the gut, to help make your fats be broken down into fat-soluble vitamins and other things like these fish oils we're talking about. But if you have your gallbladder removed, you no longer have the piggy bank. So your liver's still making bile, but you can't store it and then squeeze it out when you want it and need it at meal times. So instead, what he showed us, this gastroenterologist demonstrated that there is a constant 24/7 leak of a very small amount of bile acids because there's no storage, there's only production. And there's not a big, huge bang of it at a big fatty meal, or when you take fish oil supplements or vitamin D or vitamin K supplements, or you take them all together at the same time with a fatty meal, and then you've got a lot of demand for bile acid replacement to help you absorb and utilize all that you went to the trouble of buying and swallowing. So there's been some studies that show that people who have their gallbladders removed tend to have higher incidence of cancer because this creepy constant leakage of bile can be damaging to the lining of the gut. But there's some studies that weren't able to prove that connection. It's been some studies say not good to get your gallbladder out, higher risk of cancer. Some studies say of colorectal cancer, and some studies say, it doesn't have a higher risk. And this has gone over for the last 15, 20 years of studies just on each side of the fence, politically, kind of crazy making. And it's probably because some people can handle that extra irritation because some people have more anti-inflammatory molecules in their gut wall that help them decompress pro-inflammation and irritation when it shows up. Like some people can eat gluten. We know that every gut makes a little bit of the interleukins and cytokines that are pro-inflammatory, but some people have a lot of cytokine, interleukin 10, I believe it is, that's an anti-inflammatory, and that comes in and just sweeps up all that inflammation. So they have a moment of inflammation, and then it's all calmed down and everything's cool. So they don't have any symptoms. So probably those people can handle getting their gallbladder out. I'm just theoretically, I've been pondering about this. But when you do take a fat-soluble vitamin, you need to know if you've got enough bile, and you want to take it with a fatty meal. I was talking to a bunch of patients the other day in Florida, and some people were taking their fish oil before they went to bed at night with water. So that's not going to get you anything. You're not going to be able to break that fish oil down and make it bioavailable or, utilize it well. So, that's something to keep in mind. And the other new study that came out that I thought was very, very cool that takes pressure off of us. And this study came out of Scientific Reports just a few days ago. And it was a study that looked at how less is more, and that nature is generous. So if you just put out a little bit of effort, you get a lot back. So this study was a study of taking a look at people who had 10 minutes of relaxation and what this did for their system in their body, just 10 minutes of relaxation. And these were scientists from Consens, and they said just 10 minutes of relaxation or massage was able to create more resilience when another stressor showed up. And they called this that nature has a built-in system that helps take care of yourself if you have little moments of you taking care of it. Now, I know in the olden days, health nuts would say, we want to let the body heal itself. It's kind of like that. Or spiritual teachers would say, unleash the healing energy of the body so it can heal itself if we give it what it needs. This is kind of like that. They named this system of the body healing itself the PNS system. It's a built-in regenerative system that they labeled PNS for some reason. And they basically said just a small amount, 10-minute components of time, build up this PNS so that when you have in the future stress or threat, you have the oomph to handle it. That the body rejuvenates with little bit of inputs here and there. So I know a lot of people come in, and when I do their intake, I say, do you exercise? And they go, yeah, I just haven't exercised for a few years. Yeah, I exercise, but I just haven't exercised for a few years. I have to take a breath and a glass of water after they say that. And most of the time, people will say, I can exercise and I do an hour a day and I do it really well for a month or 4 weeks, and then I can't. It's too big of a demand, an hour a day. It's too much for them. So they end up not doing anything. If you're a perfectionistic person, sometimes you avoid getting anything accomplished because it's never good enough and you end there with nothing done. So I try and get my patients to just promise to me that they'll work out for 10 minutes a day. And that they'll rest for 10 minutes a day. When everything's going crazy, just go somewhere. You don't even have to meditate. You don't have to do deep breathing, but you can do that. You don't have to do visualizations, but you can do that. But 10 minutes of rest is very restorative to that healing reserve and resiliency deep inside of us. Now, I experienced this myself in the pandemic, and I just saw this on my trip to Cape Cod. Because normally I go to the gym every day, maybe once or twice a day, at least an hour to 2 hours a day for most of my adult life, dance for 2-3 nights a week, canoe for a few times a month. And then the pandemic hit and the gyms were closed. And even now I don't feel safe to go back to the petri dish of the gym. Even though it's always been my sacred space. I love, 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 love gyms and have gone to gyms all over the world, in India and Amsterdam. And I wish I would have taken pictures of all these crazy gyms all over the world. But so I also had plantar fasciitis at the beginning of the pandemic, and I couldn't walk from the couch to the kitchen, let alone go outside and run or walk. So I got a rowing machine, and that's what I started with. And how much can you row? Because it's the same thing. It's rowing. It's not like being at the gym and having this potpourri of tons of machines and stretching units that you can use. So my workout time was very condensed into 10 to 15 minute periods where I also found some small weights and then I used those. And I wasn't sure how I'd be on Cape Cod. Well, I had so much energy on Cape Cod. We were kayaking for hours a day. And Mike, who is younger than me, he really had to work to keep up with me and was usually so many leagues behind me. So I saw in my own life that with exercise, you don't need a lot. Less is more. And if you say to yourself, I'm mainly going to go work out for an hour, and you expect that of yourself, you're usually going to not do it because it's so much time. I mean, I'm unusual. My mom was a state champion athlete, and I've been working out my whole life. And so I'm addicted to how I feel when I work out. But you don't have to do a lot to be really well. And all of these small little things, if you promise 10 minutes a day of motion and 10 minutes a day of repose, this will do so much for you. And these were researchers from the Neuropsychology Lab and Center for the Advanced Study of Collective Behavior at the University of Constance. And they saw that short times of relaxation, just 10 minutes, or rest, or simple massage. It didn't matter what it was, that you had time out. Your van was parked up against the curb for halftime, that this boosted the body's PNS, leading to better resilience and energy and reduction of perceived mental stress. It just made you work a heck of a lot better. So meditation works, visualization works, and prayer works. Doing nothing but just sitting quietly works. Just vitamin B, vitamin B. And small little stints. So keep that in mind when your life seems like it's getting away from you, and do it even when your life is good, so that when the times show up where it feels like it's getting away from you, there's less of those times. You're not rattled as much by those times, and you have more resilience, and you mirror all this to your children. They see you facing the ups and downs and the unprecedented stresses of life that we have today in ways in which you are proactive and mindful. And this sinks in. Well, there's another article that caught my eye that I thought you should know about. You know, hormones are so unappreciated. They're the rabbit hole of today's medicine. And there was data going back over 11 years where they treated obese men who normally would have gone, some of them, to bariatric surgery for obesity, with testosterone injections. And what's very peculiar is they only gave these testosterone injections every 3 months. When we recommend them, it's often once to 2 times a week. And the reason that men tend to use injections of testosterone is for many, many years, the gels and the creams that they came in weren't bioavailable for the really thick skin that men had, or even if they put the gel on the mucosal area around the anus and got a different kind of gel, they just didn't seem to work. But PCCA, who I lecture for a lot, has been making available to compounding pharmacists a gel that acts very similar to injectable testosterone called Atrevis, Atrevis. And I'm not on their payroll or anything, but we used to always recommend injections at the clinics where I worked at or pellets for men with testosterone. But Atrevis seems to be one of the first creams that's come along that's really, really helpful. But this was really interesting because, 42% of Americans are obese, the CDC says. And of course, obesity is linked to all kinds of nasty stuff, including cognitive decline, shrinking volume of your brain, and worse outcomes with COVID. So what they did was a number of companies, one of them being Bayer, European Bayer, the aspirin Bayer company, made a presentation at a virtual online, because this had just happened, European and International Congress on Obesity, taking a dive into the look of the use of testosterone therapy to treat men with obesity. And they gave long-term testosterone, so they must have gave, of course, slow-acting testosterone to give an injection every 3 months. And they were able to show that men who were on this for a few years dropped weight by 20% on the average, similar to if they had gone through bariatric medication. And this was over 11 years worth of data. And they took a look at 471 men that they've been looking at since 2004. These were men who, when they did a blood test on them, they didn't have enough testosterone. It was usually under what they call 250 or 300. So they call them functional hypogonadic males, or low testosterone production. And these were looked at in these were German patients, urologic practices with people who had obesity, with males. And they gave them an injection every 3 months, and they followed them. And the average age of the participants was 61. And the men who received testosterone lost on the average 20% of their body weight during the study period, while those who didn't receive the treatment gained an average of a number of pounds. So they were saying, why don't we start taking a look at males' testosterone levels in light of their struggle with weight? You know, being a men and women have the same hormones. We have all the same hormones, just in different dosages. Size matters. With hormones, men have more testosterone, so size matters. The more testosterone, the more male-like. But they also have estrogen. And estrogen in a male, if the ratio between the two is off, and if testosterone is lower than the estrogen, then they will hold on to weight. And it's really hard, even with interventions, to get them to lose weight. So if you give testosterone, it makes sense, and you elevate and improve that ratio. And testosterone also is an anabolic hormone. It helps create more healthy muscle. It also signals the whole entire biome and lining of the gut. It does so many different things. It even, I think, signals the higher executive functioning areas of the brain so that you're more open to having mindfulness about what you eat and proactivity about exercise. But it's looking at a man's hormones and the lack of them to see that that might be contributing to his obesity issue that he's struggling with over and over. And that giving testosterone, whether it's in an Atrivas-based cream or whether it's an injectable, might be so helpful. So when is the last time your family doc or your internist said, instead of going to a bariatric doctor, why don't we take a look and measure your hormones? What a concept! In Italy, they have this term called accidempoli, means what the WTF, accidempoli. So it's just so crazy to me that this isn't something that's already done. But this is a study that was just published, and it was published in, and they're looking at giving this as an alternative to bariatric surgery. And it was, let me bring this up here, it was published in Medical News, and I, for some reason, can't find the whole citation here right at the moment. So that is pretty cool, and I'm going to present one more. There's so many cool studies that could be translated into our life. We could be here for the next 15 weeks, but one study kind of blew my mind, and it had to do with coffee. And I hear people who are vegans or whole food people or raw food people or coffee's bad. You know, they badmouth coffee. Bad thing. But that has not been the case in so much different science over the years. Coffee improves insulin receptor function. So there's all kinds of data that show that if you consume a moderate but healthy amount of coffee, you have less incidence of type 2 diabetes or prediabetes. That's been clear cut. Coffee for years has been shown to be protective of the biome in the brain because people who drink more coffee have less Parkinson's disease. And that link between the two isn't just epidemiologic and soft. It's hard. We know that people who drink more coffee have less incidence of Parkinson's disease. Coffee has about 1,000 polyphenolic compounds, and it makes a difference in how you make it. So we're going to talk about that in a little bit because I just began this show talking about Nespresso. But these investigators looked at the link of how much coffee you consume if you've already got colorectal cancer. So colorectal cancer is cancer either in your colon or your rectum, so it's in the intestinal tract. And it's a nasty cancer. One of my dear friends died from it last year. My father had it, but he beat it. So these investigators looked at almost 1,200 patients who were being treated for metastatic colorectal cancer. So these were people who were stage 4 and they were struggling for their life, okay? And they looked and took a look at how much caffeine or coffee they ingested per day. So the people who were drinking 2 to 3 cups of coffee a day were likely to live longer overall and had a longer time before their disease worsened than those who didn't drink coffee. In fact, participants who drank even larger amounts of coffee, more than 4 cups per day, I drink such dark coffee, I'm sure I drink the equivalent of 5 cups a day, had an even greater benefit on their disease process. These are people who already had colorectal cancer. They're fighting for their life. And these scientists were investigating, and this was published in JAMA Oncology, September 17th, in JAMA Oncology. And I got to tell you where this came from. And the benefits, by the way, held for both caffeinated and decaffeinated. I know a lot of women with breast cancer have been told they have to go off caffeine because some women have breast tissue that's sensitive to the methionines in coffee and in tea. So that's another issue. But this is colorectal cancer. And it was published again in the Journal of the American Medical Association Oncology. That JAMA is the acronym, the Pajama Journal. And this came from the Department of Medical Oncology, Dana-Farber Cancer Institute, and Harvard Medical School. It came from the Alliance of Statistics and Data Management from the Mayo Clinic at Rochester. It came from the Department of Biostatistics and Biomedicine at the Duke University School of Medicine. It came from the Southeast Clinical Oncology Research Consortium out of North Carolina Department of Medicine, the Division of Medical Oncology from Norris Comprehensive Cancer Center and Keck School of Medicine. It came from the Office Night Cancer Institute. It came from the School of Medicine, Yale Cancer Center, and Smallow Cancer Hospital in New Haven. It came from Harvard. It came from Yale. It came from Duke Cancer Institute. It came from West Virginia University Cancer Institute. It came from Weill Cornell Medical College, Cornell University, and Memorial Sloan Kettering. These were all of the people who were part of this study saying that if you are fighting for your life with colorectal cancer, the more coffee you drank, the better your disease process. This was just published today, September 20th. It was published September 17th. So the investigators say that numerous compounds are in coffee that are good. They're antioxidant, they're anti-inflammatory, and other properties. We know there's many things that may be active against cancer. And this was all in people who just drank coffee. They didn't say you're getting shade-grown coffee, organic coffee. We do know if you don't drink organic coffee, on the average, with a 2-cup drinker a day, you ultimately get several pounds of pesticide exposure by the end of the year. So we don't recommend non-organic coffee. But these were just the benefits of the polyphenolic compounds that come in the coffee bean. That's why you eat vegetables. They have polyphenolic compounds. Some people only get their polyphenolic compounds from coffee because they're not really consuming vegetables. But they discuss in this JAMA Oncology article that came out a few days ago, that came from all of those centers, that epidemiologic studies have found that higher coffee intake was associated with improved survival in patients with stage 3 colon cancer, but the relationship hasn't been known. This article was looking also at stage 4. They found that participants who drank 2 to 3 cups of coffee per day had a reduced risk for cancer progression. Their cancer slowed down because they were getting polyphenolic compounds. Now, I know you want to say, well, they should also get them from vegetables, of course, but why not let them enjoy coffee? We take so many cancer patients or other people off coffee when they get on a health journey, and coffee is good for you. And take a look at Dave Asprey's coffee, Bulletproof, and all the different things that he enhances it with. So don't forget about him. But those who consume more than 4 cups per day had the greatest benefit. This was called association of coffee intake with survival in patients with advanced or metastatic colorectal cancer. And don't forget, look at all those cancer centers that put their name on this article. I've been cleaning my house all day. I just saw what a mess my hair was. Oncologists do not talk to patients about food or what they consume. And there's so much data, it's really hard not to get cynical and arrogant and angry, having been a patient myself. But I don't know how often is a doctor, an oncologist, going to say, you know, you can go ahead and enjoy your coffee because the statistics from a JAMA Oncology article this week have really shown that you should go and enjoy. Go get that espresso. Go to Best Buy and have a high five moment and then sanitize. But the problem is there's so much quality information in the medical literature, and it's often not translated into the clinical trenches, especially when you've got a really nasty diagnosis and you're fighting for your life. That's why I like to share this kind of information. It's game-changing, life-changing. It's easily translatable into your life. It's based in science, although there's questions these days over some of our science. But anyway, I think that's all we're going to do for today. In the next show, I'm going to have to tell you there's some doctors around the world that are so aggravated with people who aren't wearing masks. Some towns are making people who didn't wear a mask and go on to get COVID go and dig graves for those that died of COVID, and all kinds of hoopla debate is going on. So we're going to discuss that in the next show. And don't forget that I have my new membership. So if you really want to get more of a deep dive with me, you can go to drlindseyberkson.com/membership. And I have 3 levels, and I'm educating on each level in different ways. And it's very cool. You should at least check it out. I was putting Facebook postings for almost 10 years for free on Facebook, and now I've moved that over to the lowest level, which is $5 a month, and you get all kinds of cool stuff. And I give free different meetings every now and then for everybody at all levels. Like I'm giving free beauty tips. I don't think you'd want to look like me today necessarily, but I'm going to give a free talk for everybody on beauty tips. And then the pro level very soon is going to have Dr. Sam Rabar, who is an iconic functional gastroenterologist and one of the world's leading experts on SIBO, talk about the complexities of SIBO diagnosis and treatment. So we have all kinds of things. We're like our own little clan with access to a lot of very cool people. So at least take a look, drlindseyberkson.com/membership. And don't forget, if you really like information like this, please go and leave. We realized that for a while, iTunes had changed how people could give reviews, and our instructions at the end of each show notes didn't reflect that. So people were trying to give a review and couldn't, and we lost out on some of those very cool reviews. And once again, I want to thank Jennifer Lee she sent me this beautiful note. It says peace on it. That probably looks backwards on that picture. But she went out of her way to put some masks in an envelope and send me some. That meant so much to me. I hope this show means a lot to you. Be well, everybody. Bye.